Hello everybody, Anthony Aniano here from RotoBaller Radio and RotoBaller.com with an early look at the Week 10 waiver wire for your 2022 fantasy football season. Full disclosure, recording this Sunday evening before even the Sunday night and Monday night games, thus the reason we call it the early look at the waiver wire. And as always, we use Yahoo roster percentages as our talking point, trying to keep our waiver wire claims at or below 50% rostership. Now in Week 10, we have 4 teams on a bye: Baltimore Ravens, Cincinnati Bengals, New England Patriots, and the New York Jets. Okay, so be mindful of that. Injuries, limited this week. Not many major injuries. Week 9, Aaron Jones, an ankle. Romeo Doubs, an ankle as well in Green Bay, were the two biggest as of this point on Sunday to come out of the news wire. So we'll take a look first at the quarterback position. 2 quarterbacks that you may need. When I look at the waiver wire, the bye weeks, you're going to lose Lamar Jackson. You're going to lose Joe Burrow. You'll be all right without Zach Wilson and Mac Jones. So 2 quarterbacks to potentially replace those 2 quarterbacks on a bye. Number 2 is Daniel Jones of the New York Giants. Coming off his bye, Week 8 was his worst week of the season. However, it was only the first time all year that he did not have double-digit fantasy points. Giants have a nice matchup in Week 10 against the Houston Texans. Daniel Jones sitting at 40% rostered. And my top ad at the quarterback position, if you need somebody, is Jimmy Garoppolo of the San Francisco 49ers. Also, coming off a bye against now the Los Angeles Chargers defense, who you can move the ball against. Jimmy G has 4 straight games coming into the his bye week, of 20 or more fantasy points in any format that was 6 points per passing touchdown. He should have Deebo Samuel back and healthy in Week 10. So a full complement of that 49er offense is going to be available for Garoppolo against the Chargers in Week 10. McCaffrey, Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and Kittle as well. Looks like it's on the horizon. Jimmy G should be able to give you a couple of passing touchdowns against the Chargers. So he would be my number 1 quarterback ad. He's currently rostered in 39% of leagues. Now, if you're looking for running back help, and again, with the bye weeks, first off, Aaron Jones with the ankle, we see what happens with that. You lose the Baltimore backfield for whatever that's worth. That's been an inconsistent mess. Joe Mixon coming off the game of his career. New England Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson, Michael Carter, and James Robinson got in the end zone for the Jets in Week 9. So a couple of hits there at the running back position. But for me, we'll start at the back. At number 4 at the running back position would be James Cook of the Buffalo Bills as we continue to add depth to our rosters. Zach Moss is out. Nyheim Hines is in. But James Cook was mildly involved. He had 8 attempted touches, 6 touches in total, 4 carries for 15 yards, 2 receptions for 18, 5.3 fantasy points. I don't love it. It's a desperation ad, but it is an ad I am making if I have Devin Singletary on my roster to add depth. At number 3, Jaylen Warren of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers coming off a bye, but let's just be honest about this. Najee Harris has been completely ineffective. Jaylen Warren in Week 8 was effective. 8 carries for 50 yards and finished in a PPR format with 10.5 fantasy points. Tough matchup for the Steelers against the Saints defense in Week 10, but Jaylen Warren has at least earned himself a 40% or even 30% share of work with how effective he has been compared to how ineffective Najee Harris has been. At number 2 at the running back position, Rachaad White of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was involved in the Bucs win over the Los Angeles Rams as much as Leonard Fournette was. 7 carries on the day for Rachaad White. Not overly effective, but at least split carries with Leonard Fournette here as the Bucs pull off the late upset, although didn't look overly effective on offense. Tampa Bay against the Seattle Seahawks. And my number 1 ad at the running back position has to be Jeff Wilson, now of the Miami Dolphins. He was rostered anywhere. When Christian McCaffrey was traded to San Francisco, he was dropped in numerous leagues. Goes to Miami. Jeff Wilson is only 51% rostered on Yahoo, and he split work essentially with Raheem Mostert, but was much more effective. Mostert went 9 carries, 26 yards, and a touchdown. Jeff Wilson, 9 carries, 51 yards. Jeff Wilson, 3 receptions, 21 yards, and a touchdown reception, 16.2 fantasy points. Goes against Cleveland in Week 10. He is the clear top running back to add for Week 10. Everybody else I mentioned is just roster depth, handcuffs, right? James Cook, 19% rostered. Get him if you have Devin Singletary. Jalen Warren, 7%. Get him if you have Najee Harris or if you're desperate. Rashad White of Tampa Bay, 34% rostered. Get him on your team if you have Leonard Fournette or if you're desperate. Jeff Wilson is the one player with these other running backs on a bye that you could potentially use in this upcoming Week 10. At the wide receiver position, two names to keep an eye on. DeAndre Carter of the Los Angeles Chargers. We loved Josh Palmer last week. DeAndre Carter continues to be involved. He's got 18 targets in his last 3 games. 6 targets, 5 receptions, 53 yards this week. 10.3 PPR fantasy points at San Francisco. Let's see how Mike Williams, we know, will continue to be out. Josh Palmer will still be involved. The question becomes, what happens is Keenan Allen back on the field in Week 10? If not, DeAndre Carter could be a sneaky play. He's 31% rostered. But my top wide receiver ad of the week is Terrence Marshall of the Carolina Panthers. In his last 2 games, Terrence Marshall has 7 catches for 140 yards on 15 targets and 1 touchdown. Now, 50% of the passes, P.J. Walker partly to blame. Baker Mayfield took over, though, kept Terrence Marshall involved. Marshall has outperformed DJ Moore of late. He's got 27 fantasy points over his last 2 games. This week, it was 6 targets, 3 receptions, 53 yards, and a touchdown, 14.3 fantasy points. And a good matchup for the Carolina wide receiver against the Atlanta Falcons in Week 10. And finally, at the tight end position, a couple of tight ends to be mindful of. Number 4, Cole Kmet of the Chicago Bears. Now, he's got 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games. Still not fully committed. Justin Fields, we know, was a monster. He was a monster because of his legs. Threw for 3 touchdowns, 2 of them to Cole Kmet. He's got 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games. Has Cole Kmet turned the corner? And can we fully rely on the Bears' passing attack is the big question. Cole Kmet, 23% rostered, and a good matchup. Will stack some Bears in DFS next week against the Detroit Lions. At number 3, Noah Fant of the Seattle Seahawks, 10% rostered. Noah Fant goes 6 targets, 5 receptions, 96 yards. Had the big play late in the game for Seattle. Finishes with 14.6 fantasy points. Seattle on the road next week against the Tampa Bay Bucks. At number 2, speaking of the Tampa Bay Bucks, Cade Otton at 11% rostered. 2 out of his last 3 games with 10 or more fantasy points. Is terrific in that final drive for the Buccaneers in Week 9. Finishes 5 catches, 68 yards, and the game-winning touchdown. 17.8 fantasy points. He's got the Seattle Seahawks. But my number 1 tight end ad of the week, he was on a bye this week, but Greg Dulcich is still sitting at only 34% rostered. Since Week 6, Greg Dulcich has 182 receiving yards in 3 games. 2 of those games with 5 or more targets. All three of those games was 11 or more fantasy points. They're on the road next week is Denver at Tennessee. Dulcich has quickly developed an amazing rapport with Russell Wilson in Denver, and he would be my number 1 tight end ad of the week. So quarterbacks, Jimmy G, Daniel Jones. Running backs, I should say Daniel Jones 2, Jimmy G 1. Running backs, number 4, James Cook. Number 3, Jalen Warren. Number 2, Rashad White. Number 1, Jeff Wilson. Full disclosure, running back, love Tyler Algier as well. However, he's over 60% rostered. Don't really talk about him here, but if he's out there, grab him. At the wide receiver position, DeAndre Carter, Terrence Marshall. Tight end position, we go Cole Kmet, Noah Fant, Cade Otton, and Greg Dulcich. This leads us to our top 5 ads of the week. Number 5, I'm going Jimmy Garoppolo. If you need a quarterback, he is the quarterback to add for Week 10. Number 4, Rashad White. I can see the transition happening. More and more work for the rookie over Leonard Fournette. Number 3, grab the tight end if you need it, Greg Dulcich out of Denver. Number 2, Terrence Marshall. 2 strong games in a row. Nice matchup next week against Atlanta. And the number 1 ad of the week for Week 10, Jeff Wilson. He's in a split technically right now. I do think he takes over more and more from Raheem Mostert as the number one running back for the Miami Dolphins. All right, everybody, if you're looking for more great content, like and subscribe right here to RotoBaller's YouTube channel. From beginning of week with Waiver Wire all through the week, ending with sleepers and value plays, RotoBaller's YouTube channel is a must-watch for your fantasy football season. Sign up for RotoBaller's Premium Pass using the promo code ACES. Gets all the great lineup optimizers, team sync, and all the great articles all week long. Give me a follow on Twitter at @AnnieAnnaFantasy, and we will see you next time right here on RotoBaller Radio.